The meeting ended 40 minutes early. I stood outside the Wilshire Boulevard office and looked at my watch. 3:20. My car wasn't coming until 4:30. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I had nothing to do. I was 67. I'd built a construction company from a two-person office in Greenwich into a firm with projects across 6 states, and I didn't know what to do with 40 free minutes. I started walking toward Old Town Pasadena, telling myself I needed a birthday gift for my daughter Megan. That was the excuse anyway. What actually stopped me was a gallery with no sign, just a wooden door propped open and warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. I stepped inside. The walls were lined with portraits. An older man with white hair and paint on his forearm looked up from his workbench. "Take your time," he said. "There's no rush." I moved past the paintings, looking for something for Megan, and then my feet simply stopped. A smaller portrait, hung low, showed a woman seated at an angle, her hands open in her lap, smiling the private smile of someone lost in a thought no one else was part of. It was my wife, not someone who resembled her, Claire. The exact tilt of her head, the slight crinkle at her left eye. 35 years of marriage had written those details into my memory, and every one of them was on that canvas. "Who is the woman in this painting?" My voice came out rough. The man set down his brush. Her name was Claire Hale. She was a regular here for years. When this gallery was about to close, she went door to door on this street to save it. She never told me how many calls it took. He looked at the unfinished canvas. I made this to thank her. She never saw it finished. Then, quieter. She passed away about 2 years ago. Her husband never came here, as far as I know. "I'm her husband," I said. The man, Daniel Whitmore, disappeared into the back and returned with a small wooden box. "Your wife left this with me. She said if her husband ever saw this painting, give him the box." Back at my hotel, I opened it. Inside was a notebook in Claire's handwriting, a sealed envelope with my name on it, and a folded page with 2 words. "Find Peggy." I read the notebook until my hands shook. Claire hadn't written about her illness. She'd written about our son, Ethan. Small observations at first, how he deflected questions about company finances he used to love discussing. Then a loan document she'd glimpsed on my desk, a lender's name I didn't recognize, my own confused denial when she asked me about it. Which means Richard didn't sign that document. She'd written, or didn't sign it the way he thought he did. She wrote about Ethan's visits growing frequent and proprietary, about the steady drip of comments suggesting Megan wasn't cut out for the family business. "He is building something. I know the difference between a man who is working hard and a man who is working afraid." Then the entry that stopped my heart. Ethan had called Claire's doctor directly and asked not whether she was comfortable, but how long she had left. Not because he was frightened, because he needed to know when to begin. "I have not told Richard." She'd written, "How do you tell a man that the son he is proudest of has been calculating the timing of your death? That is why I am leaving this with Daniel, who has every reason to tell the truth. If you're reading this, it means you found the painting. It means you're ready." The last entry, written weeks before she died, was addressed to me directly. "Whatever Ethan has told you about Megan, don't believe it. Find her before you do anything else. You're going to need each other. I love you. I'm sorry I didn't find a way to tell you while I was still there to hold your hand." I sat on that hotel bed and broke apart quietly, the way men my age learn to. Peggy Lawson had been our family attorney for 22 years. When I called her at dawn, she wasn't surprised. "Come to my office at 9. Don't call Ethan. Bring your original bank signature card." At her office, she laid 3 loan agreements on the desk, over $4 million from 2 private lenders, each bearing my signature. I set my real signature card beside them. Close, but wrong. The cross-stroke on the H in Hale angled up instead of down, a habit my father taught me at a kitchen table when I was 12. My son had practiced my signature for months and still gotten it almost right. Almost. Worse, $800,000 of that borrowed money had gone into an escrow account for my own house in Greenwich. Someone was trying to buy my home out from under me, using money stolen in my name. Our accountant, Warren Ellis, spent a night going through the books and confirmed it. Wire fraud, bank fraud, each loan agreement a separate federal count. And buried in the fine print was a guarantor clause. If the loans defaulted, all liability would fall on me. My son hadn't just stolen from me. He'd built a structure so if everything collapsed, I'd be the one left holding the debt. And my name, the one my father built and I'd spent 40 years protecting, would be the thing that buried me. I drove to Greenwich that afternoon. In the study safe, behind old tax returns, I found a real estate listing for my own house, sale arranged through a Beverly Hills brokerage, my name forged on the paperwork. Beneath it, a modification to my will, notarized by a man I'd never met, reassigning control of everything to Ethan in the event of my death. My signature was on it. I had never signed it. I called Peggy. She pulled the notary's record, 3 prior complaints for certifying signatures without verifying identity. Someone paid him to do this, she said. My phone buzzed with another call. Megan. Ethan had told her I'd decided to sell the house myself, and that he didn't want to break the news to her directly because I felt guilty. Dad, she said, is that true? I need to see you, I told her. Don't call your brother. In her San Francisco apartment, I laid it all out. The gallery, the notebook, the forged loans, the house, the will. She sat very still, her knuckles white around her coffee cup. Then I told her the rest. Her biggest client, the firm giving her career-defining contracts, was a subcontractor of Ethan's company. He'd built her a trap, enough income to matter, enough to lose everything if she ever pushed back or came looking for me. He told me you were losing your judgment, she said. That losing Mom had affected you more than you let on. She showed me a text from him. Dad isn't thinking clearly anymore. We need to protect the family assets. I'll handle it. He didn't count on one thing, I told her. Your mother saw this coming. She made sure I'd find out. I flew to Long Beach to meet Marcus Webb, Ethan's former CFO, fired after refusing to sign a report that hid a devastating variance in the Beverly Hills project's real losses. Marcus handed me a thick envelope of financial evidence and a small digital recorder. There's a meeting on here, he said. Your son tells a room full of people that you have no idea what's happening, and that it needs to stay that way. That night in my hotel room, I pressed play. Ethan's voice, calm and precise. My father has no idea what we are doing. Keep it that way. His name is what we need, not his involvement. If he pushes you, come to me and I handle it. I sat with the recorder in my hands for a long time. Peggy called soon after with worse news. The FBI had already been investigating Ethan for 14 months. 5 elderly investors had lost a combined $3.4 million, one of them hospitalized with chest pains after receiving a letter falsely reassuring him his money was safe. This was no longer a family matter. It hadn't been for a long time. Records pulled by federal subpoena revealed the anonymous investor secretly propping up the fraud, Gerald Marsh, a man whose failing company I'd personally rescued 20 years earlier with a co-signed loan. He'd shaken my hand back then and promised he'd never forget it. Now his name sat on an exit clause that would let him recover his losses directly from me, using my name as a financial backstop I'd never agreed to. Peggy and I drove to his home on a Newport Beach bluff. He admitted Ethan had told him I was a silent partner who preferred to stay quiet until the project scaled. He'd never called to confirm it, because it was profitable not to. When Peggy played him the recording, the color drained from his face. He used me too, Gerald said. Yes, I told him. But you let him. Remember the man who ended up in the hospital because he trusted my name? I left him asking for a lawyer. Peggy also tracked down Sandra, the hospice nurse who'd cared for Claire in her final weeks. She told me Ethan had visited 3 times near the end, once asking her to leave the room, and she'd overheard him say, "Mom, just sign it. It's for the family. It protects everyone." Claire had said no. On his last visit, he'd sat and talked about his plans for the future, and Claire had simply listened and smiled at him, carrying it alone, on her own terms, until the end. She was never frightened, Sandra told me. She was tired, but she talked about you often. She said you always needed a little longer than most to see what was right in front of you, but that you always got there. Then Megan called with one more blow. 6 months after Claire's death, someone had filed a forged beneficiary change on her life insurance policy, redirecting funds she'd left to Megan, notarized 3 weeks after her death certificate was filed. My son had forged his dead mother's signature to steal from his sister. I flew to the FBI's Los Angeles field office with Megan and Peggy. Special Agent Diana Reyes laid out the full case: wire fraud, bank fraud, elder financial abuse, insurance fraud, forgery across 3 states. Under California law, I qualified as a victim of elder financial abuse myself. Ethan had a project launch scheduled at the Beverly Hills Ballroom in 6 weeks, and the FBI wanted me there when he tried to solicit new investors on the back of the fraud. Say nothing to him until then, Reyes said. I agreed. The night before the event, Ethan's attorney called. He'd filed an emergency petition claiming I was mentally incompetent and needed a court-appointed conservator. Hours before I was set to expose him, Peggy was almost pleased. It means nothing legally, she said, and it just handed the FBI more evidence of elder abuse with intent to obstruct. The ballroom was full the next morning. Investors, press, Gerald Marsh seated near the wall with his lawyers. Ethan took the stage looking magnificent, spoke about legacy and family, put a photo of Claire on the screen behind him, and reached for the signature page of the investment agreement. I stood up. The room turned. Ethan saw me and froze, pen still in hand. My name is Richard Hale, I said, my voice carrying without effort. Some of you invested because of that name. I need you to understand what it was used for without my knowledge. I laid it out plainly: the forged loans, the falsified losses, the forged will, the forged insurance filing that stole from his own sister, the conservatorship petition filed the night before to silence me. Agent Reyes and her team moved toward the stage. 2 more agents stepped beside Gerald Marsh, who didn't even try to stand. Dad, stop, Ethan said into the microphone, his voice cracking. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand exactly what I'm doing, I said. I'm doing what your mother would have done if she'd been here. She wasn't. So I'm doing it for both of us. Megan stood beside me, steady, and looked at her brother without flinching. For one unguarded second, all the polish fell off Ethan's face, and I saw just my son, young, and suddenly aware the ground beneath him had never been solid. The future can't be built by betraying the people who sacrificed everything for you, I told him. I'm sorry. Not for what I'd just done, for everything that had been lost long before. The room erupted. I sat back down and held my daughter while agents led the case forward around us. Months later, Ethan was negotiating a federal plea deal, the core felonies intact. Gerald Marsh surrendered his business license and avoided prison by cooperating fully. The notary who forged the will lost his license. Thomas Warren, the elderly investor who'd nearly died from the stress of the fraud, wrote me a handwritten letter thanking me and saying he'd chosen to spend what time he had left grateful rather than angry. Megan kept her firm intact. The receiver overseeing Ethan's frozen company honored her contracts to completion. She started choosing smaller projects now, ones she wanted rather than needed. I moved back into the house in Greenwich. Daniel Whitmore drove Claire's portrait up from Pasadena himself, and I hung it in the front room between the 2 windows facing the yard. Some Sunday evenings, Megan comes for dinner, and I still find myself standing in front of that painting more than I probably should. You heard me, I told Claire quietly, one January evening while Megan cooked in the kitchen down the hall. I know I took longer than you'd have liked, but I got there. The portrait didn't answer. It never does, but I've learned that well-made things carry a patience most people can't manage, and Claire had always been better at patience than me. She trusted me with the distance between what I knew and what I needed to see. I closed it, eventually. That was enough. I used to believe loyalty meant never questioning the people you love. I was wrong, and that mistake nearly cost me everything. I held on to the son I wanted to believe in long after the signs were clear. Don't be like me. Don't wait for the truth to find you first. Family betrayal is rarely loud. It arrives dressed in the language of love and legacy. Watch for it, and when you see it, act with clarity, not anger. This story doesn't end cleanly, but it ends honestly. That's enough.